A very good morning to you, Darren Jones. Thanks for talking to us. First of all, your reflections on that revised GDP figure. Good news for the economy.
Well, I mean, we have this conversation every few weeks, I think, where a 0.1% change in economic growth is reported. And, I'm happy to take a 0.1% increase in economic growth, but it needs to be much, much more than that, not least because the price of the things that we pay for, the cost of living crisis, is still a real issue for people. And when you compare the UK to other major economies, we still have some of the lowest growth across those G7 major economies. So there's more to be done.
And I also want to ask you about the IFS, the Institute for Fiscal Studies report out this morning, which says that the government is on course to oversee the biggest tax-raising parliament since records began. What do you make of that?
Well, I mean, it's not a surprise to anyone because we've all been experiencing these constant Tory tax rises over many, many years. And the big question that I and many people ask is, well, what are we getting for our money? I mean, we've been increasing the amount of taxes, the Tories have been increasing the amount of taxes people pay. We've been paying those extra taxes. And when we look around us, everything seems to be broken. We've got buildings falling down, backlogs in the national health system, the economy either at no growth or low growth, people struggling to be paid enough in order to pay the bills at home. You've really got to start to ask the question, what is it the Tories are doing with our money?
The government says that the Chancellor wants to lower the tax burden, but that sound money must come first. So will people's taxes go down under a Labour government?
Well, can I just say, I mean, sound economics must come first. I mean, really, the reason we're in this position right now is because the Conservatives crashed the economy. I mean, it was only a year ago that Liz Truss and Kwasi Kwarteng kind of took to political vandalism, and we're all paying the price for it. And that's on the back of another 11, 12 years of failed economic policy. So it's all well and good Tory ministers saying that they have a hope or an intention to cut taxes, but the reason we're in this position is because they failed hopelessly in the first place.
Let's look to the future, though. If Labour were to get into power, could people expect their taxes to go down?
Well, if Labour wins the next election, which I obviously hope that we do, we will inherit the status quo. So the money coming in, the money going out, the cost of having to run the public services in the state that they're in. And we're going to have to keep that show on the road whilst trying to come forward with, big reforms to fix the country and get Britain working again. Of course, we would love to reduce people's taxes in the medium term because they are the highest that they've been for a very long period of time. But we're going to have to fix the country first.
The IFS says that the tax rate reflects decisions to increase government spending largely around, or partly at least around, demographic change, pressures on the health service, for example, as well as some unwinding of austerity. I mean, given those demands, is there any real prospect of taxes coming down? This is something we have to live with, isn't it?
No, I mean, the demographic change is right. Of course, the IFS has the data that shows that the population is generally getting older, and when you get a bit older, you need more help from the health and social care system. But that's a bit of an excuse as far as I'm concerned. I mean, Labour is absolutely focused on economic growth, getting the economy moving. That means helping businesses to sell more things, to make more profits. It's about helping workers have higher wages, because when that happens, the amount of tax we then get in from people's higher wages and businesses' higher profits increases and the money goes round further. But we've also got to think about reform, because it's right that health and social care services are in demand and will be in more demand in the future. But that's why we have to bring forward reforms to our public services so that they can deliver the right outcomes for people in the right way without costing more and more and more every single year.
I just want your thoughts on reports out today which suggest that the Prime Minister is looking at plans to introduce a package of measures for motorists, which would see councils blocked from introducing 20-mile-an-hour speed restrictions. What would your reaction be if that was confirmed?
Well, Labour has never said that there should be 20-mile-per-hour zones across the country. This is not, I think this might be one of Rishi Sunak's I probably shouldn't say made up, but odd policies, the 7 bins, the tax, the carpooling, the 20 mile per hour. I mean, I think the Conservatives are just trying to create dividing lines for an election. In the past, this has been a decision for local councils, and different councils have taken different views in different areas. But this was certainly not something that was being driven at a national level by the Labour Party or anybody else.
So do you approve of 20-mile-an-hour zones? Do you think they're a good thing for our cities?
I think it depends on what local cities and the people in those cities want in their area, and that's a decision that should be taken locally.
And I do want to ask you about IPP sentences, if that's OK. We've got a special report today looking at the fact that there are nearly 2,900 prisoners under IPP sentences still in prison. What would a Labour government do about them? Would they commit to resentencing?
Well, I mean, some of the cases that have been in your news stories today have clearly been deeply distressing, but this is a very complex area of law. There are many prisoners who have been subject to these measures, and what we have to be very careful of is to ensure that any changes are done in a way that puts the public's protection first. The whole point of this scheme in the first place was to protect the public from offenders who posed a risk. So we have said for a long time, and it's our position today, that there should be a cross-party solution to this that should be considered carefully. And I know the Justice Select Committee, I used to chair a select committee, so I know Bob Neal very well, has been looking at this, and they're putting forward proposals to Alex Chalk, the Justice Secretary, and we'll consider whatever proposals the government wants to put forward when they do so.
OK, well, Darren Jones, we appreciate your time today. Thanks so much.